You're listening to the Intuitive Souls podcast. I am your host, Sarah Caruso, and this podcast is designed to educate, inspire, and enlighten. Let's wake up together. Hey guys, and welcome to the Intuitive Souls podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. You know I'm excited to have you here. If you are an OG, if you keep on coming back, you know how fucking grateful I am for each and every one of you, each download, each comment, each like. You guys make this so much fun and so easy for me, and I am just eternally fucking grateful. So, let's first, before we dive in to today's episode, which is a really good one, I really enjoyed speaking with the guest, which I'll tell you a little bit more in a minute. I wanted to just, again, thank you guys so much for, all the messages that I receive, all the comments, everything. Like, you guys make this just a dream come true. And if you guys do have a minute to head on over to iTunes to write a review, I would really appreciate it. And as a gift from me to you, if you go ahead and write a review on iTunes, take a screenshot, okay? Take a screenshot of that review, send it to me at erussopmrp@gmail.com, and I am going to send you my soul alignment activation for totally free, just as a thank you, because those reviews are allowing me to get this podcast to the ears that need to hear this show. So that is one thing. And then another thing is I've been getting a lot of messages regarding courses, and because I don't have any technically on my website, and that is because I have decided to partner up with Skillshare to offer my courses to their members. Now, Skillshare is a monthly membership platform that gives you access to thousands of different courses. When I tell you, like, there are, personal development courses, there's graphic design courses, it is just a really great platform for learning of any sort of kind, honestly. And with that, I have my courses on that platform. If you are interested in checking that platform out, I think it's like literally less than $20 a month to have access to like so many freaking courses. You can get your first 2 months free if you head on over to my website and use the link I have provided. And yeah, so that's where my courses are right now. So what courses do I have? God, I have so many. I have the Empowered Empath course that gives you a lot of tools, for living a highly sensitive life, being a highly sensitive person in a chaotic world. I give you a bunch of tools in that one, which is awesome. I have a course on how to strengthen your intuition and psychic development. I have one on shadow work. So there's a bunch of options there for you. So definitely be sure to check out Skillshare if this is something that you're interested in. Now, that's basically my spiel for the week. And in this episode, I have been actually following Rebekah the Ghost Guide for a while now. I love the way she can put so much information in a 1-minute TikTok, guys. It's insane. Like, she's so good at her TikToks, and I asked her to come on the show because I never really dabbed into the paranormal aspect of spirituality and what it's like and how to protect yourself against negative energies of that sort. So I felt like she was the perfect person to come on and talk about it. And we just had such a great conversation, and it really went much deeper than paranormal, so to speak. We really started talking about souls and the human experience, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful conversation. So be sure to check her out, not only on TikTok, but on YouTube as well. She also has some really great episodes of her visiting I watched one where she visited like a castle or something in England, and she is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this arena. So definitely be sure to follow her on YouTube as well as TikTok. So Rebekah, it was a pleasure to have you on, and you guys enjoy the show. It's a good one.
You guys, today I am touching on a different kind of subject. I asked Rebekah the Ghost Guide on TikTok to come on and talk about ghosts and the paranormal because, you know, obviously I'm a medium and I talk about spirit, but we haven't spoken about ghosts. And what better than to have Rebekah the Ghost Guide on to teach us. So, Rebekah, first off, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So, tell us a little bit about your story and how you dove into the paranormal and all of that great stuff.
Well, that's a lot of story. I'm not going to tell you everything because that would be a long time. So really my story begins when I was very young. I remember I actually went to my mom. I think I was maybe 3 at the time. And, you know, you keep the bedroom doors open in case like your 3-year-old calls out in the middle of the night. And I remember going up to my mom and saying, "Mom, I don't want to sleep with my bedroom door open." And she's like, "What? Why?" And I couldn't really tell her why because I couldn't quite really figure out what I was seeing. And I still see it in my mind's eye what I was seeing. And at night I would see figures walking up and down my hallway, and they had a kind of humanoid form, but they didn't look like humans I would recognize, so to speak.
Right.
And they would just be walking up and down my hallway. And it scared me. It terrified me because I was so worried that one of them might look in and see me seeing them. And that idea was totally terrifying to me because I didn't know what I was looking at. And at the time, my family was part of a religious institution that wasn't open-minded towards anything of the paranormal. So that kind of really made it worse because I couldn't really talk about it. And so I could see these things, and a number of things happened when I was younger that honestly were uncomfortable. And for a while, I actually shut a lot of that down. And not everybody who's spiritually sensitive is able to do that. And I really feel for those people, especially those who are afraid. I don't know why I'm part of the lucky few, I guess, who are able to do that and who can kind of choose. I can kind of choose like how much of myself I want to turn on, and I have to work on it. It's just like any other workout that you would do, having to work on that. So I shut myself off for a number of years. And then when I was getting closer to my late teens, early 20s, I started to open it back up again. And that's when a lot of other weird stuff happened. That's when I really had to start trusting my spirit guides. And I really started looking more into the ancestor side of things because I recognized that I could not go about seeing these things alone because that was no one's meant to go about life alone. And that's one of the things that I really talk about a lot on my channels as well, just to say, hey, you're not alone. There's stuff out there for you. It may not be exactly what you're expecting or even what you want, but you got to know that there's stuff in your camp. And I had to learn that the hard way. But once I did, wow, it super helps. People ask me all the time, they say, "Aren't you afraid? Like, aren't you afraid of all of these things? Don't you see things that scare you?" And I say, well, yeah, but I recognize my boundaries and I recognize that I'm not going about this alone. And all I have to do is just, in a spiritual sense, reach out for help. And I know I have things in my court, just like anybody else has things in their court.
Yeah. So was the house that you grew up in haunted? Was it old?
Here's the thing. It was not old. And I think this is a common misconception. People think old house must have something in it. And to that I say, hey, it's not the structure, it's the land. It's what is attracted to the land, what's attracted to the people. Spirits can move around. Sometimes you will get a ghost that's very attached to a home. The last home that I lived in, I had the ghost of a woman who had not been dead too long. She loved that home. She's not leaving. And fortunately, we were able to find an understanding between each
Yeah.
other, because at first she was really like, I don't like you. I don't like your fiance. I don't like your dog. She really didn't like my dog. My dog, she's the sweetest potato looking thing. But in her mind, I remember I could hear it in my mind. It was very much dogs belong outside. Dogs belong outside. People should be married before they move in with each other. Things like that. And I was like, all right, here's the reality.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story. Fun story. I love her. Yeah. The good news is we had a good understanding by the end, and it was a good cohabitation. But going back to my house growing up, there was a lot of stuff that was moving in and out. And some of that was due to what my dad had been dabbling in, which I'm not going to go into like a full discussion on that. Dad was kind of searching for a number of things, and a number of things found interest in that. So I think the figures that I saw up and down my hallway, they had just found their space in the universe, and that was in my hallway. I don't know if they were necessarily human, that they just took on a humanoid form. However, as far as like a haunting goes in my house, this is wild. This happened maybe 7 years ago. My family and I were watching home videos from when I was a baby. I remember like my mom carries me in as a baby, and it's Christmas morning. We're all really excited. And then in like a 5-second frame, and we had to go back and like rewind this VHS so many times, they're like following behind us, but not coming into the living room where we were for the Christmas tree. There was this little boy.
Wow.
Flat out little boy. And you see him, he kind of looks in from the frame of the door.
Mm-hmm.
And he had this kind of bowl cut and like kind of sunken in eyes, and he couldn't have been more than 4 feet tall. He was very pale, and he was a little bit transparent. And you see him kind of look in through the side, and then he pops back out. And then you see a kind of small shadow that crosses by the door frame. And it's crazy. We have watched these home videos before, and only so many years later, I just happened to look up and I was like, what is that? I keep rewinding it. My poor mother, she's not into this stuff. I love her. She was still living at that house at the time, and she was just like, I don't really want to watch that again. You can record it or whatever, but I don't want to see it. And she's trying to say, oh, maybe it was your granny. And I'm like, Granny didn't look like that.
Yeah.
What was she doing over there at 5 a.m.? And funny thing too, so that happened, and I took a quick video of it at the time. I lost the video after I switched over phones a number of times. We have been trying to find that VHS, and no idea where it went. No idea where it went. It's not with the rest of our VHSs from early childhood. I don't know. So
wow,
it's a mystery.
That's crazy. That's a memorable experience for sure.
Yeah. And I guess in kind of summary of your question, was my house haunted growing up? I guess in the most basic of senses, yes. However, not everybody was having experiences, not everybody was seeing things. And it wasn't like somebody had died there. It's not like even something tragic had happened there. It was just some souls and some other stuff that happened to be attracted to the space.
Right. Yeah, that's funny you say that, because I actually had a mediumship reading a couple months ago right after Christmas, and I went to the people's house because it was 2 people that were getting a reading. And as soon as I pulled up, it's about a 35-minute drive from my house. As soon as I pulled up, my hand to God, I was like, there's an Indian burial ground here.
Oh, yeah, those.
The energy.
Yep.
Nothing like I've ever experienced before. Like, I go and I walk through cemeteries, because I like it and it's enjoyable for me. But
Same.
yeah,
Depending on the burial place, same. Yeah.
Indian burial grounds, the level of
Oof.
protection and just the sacredness of it, insane. And I remember pulling up and I'm grabbing my tarot cards and stuff, and I'm like, I wonder if they know. Because he owns a couple of acres, right? It wasn't like, I think he owns like 3 acres, and I knew that there was something within this land. And so I go and I do, and I sit down, and the first thing I say is like, I just want to let you know, the first thing is that there has to be some sort of sacred Indian burial ground around here. And he looked up to me and he's like, yeah, there is. He's like, I feel it all the time.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And I was
Then he
like,
knows.
okay.
That's
yeah.
good.
But yeah, the different energy, it's not like anything I've ever experienced before.
Yes. And I found, and maybe I'm curious to kind of pick your brain on this too. I found, depending on the burial ground, sometimes depending on the religion behind it, or even the denomination behind it, it's depending on the year, the date, why so many people are buried there. There are very different kinds of feelings there.
Yeah.
That's why there are some burial grounds in town I love visiting, and then there are other ones that I know that
Stay away from.
I have no business there.
Right.
Some people do, but I do not, you know?
Yeah. That's so funny you say that, because there is, so I go to this one that's really not denominational. There's people from the Marine Corps buried there. I see ones that are Jewish, and it has to be like Episcopal or something like that, which when they're open-minded and stuff. And that's my favorite place. First off, it's the biggest one, and it has like a track around it. That's why I go there. And I find it very comforting. And I don't know, I like the energy there. But then there's another one, which is a much smaller one. And I believe it's Baptist. And so it's a very historical one where most of the people that are laid to rest there died in the 1700s.
Okay. Which also, Baptists were very different back then.
Right.
Yeah. Like you don't have evangelicals back then, for example.
Right. And I just went because I wanted to see the history of it, but it's a completely different feeling. Like I felt unwelcomed. You know what I mean? Like I was visiting, but they were watching me. Like, what are you doing here? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I definitely, and graveyards. So there's a cemetery and there's a graveyard. So graveyards are usually adjacent to a church.
Or a religious
institution. Yeah. So I don't really go to those. I don't think I have many near me. It's usually.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah. For me, it really depends. I don't go to a lot of actively in use graveyards or cemeteries. And the reason behind that is on the spiritual sense, and we're not talking ghosts so much, we're talking about energies that, I mean, everything's got to eat, right? And some things eat the energy off of what's left of what's on our bodies. So, and it's gross. Like, I don't like to think about the details, either spiritually or physically. And really what I find is, if I'm trying to connect with my loved ones, I won't go to their gravesite because I don't believe they're there. Some people do that. Some people it's for solace. You know, I totally understand. I'm all about people do what you need to do in order to mourn. That's what's important, you know, take care of yourself. Though I also love, I just learned about this recently. It's a practice in New Orleans and surrounding where after somebody is buried, they bury them. And then what they'll do is they will bring up their forefinger or their hand and they'll pull it down quickly. And the act of doing that is cutting the soul from the body. It's the closest relative releasing them. And I forget which caretaker it was that was being interviewed. It's one of those, you know, gorgeous, gorgeous old places. And she was saying that oftentimes when this happens, the person will pass out. Like, it's so powerful to just release somebody. And I think that's what's so important for us in the living world is we can help our loved ones move on and be free. The 9-year anniversary of my grandfather having passed just came up this past week. And all I could think of was that, because he was very old. I mean, he lived a very long, fulfilling life.
Yeah.
Fortunately. All I could think of, though, when I was looking at pictures of him was he's free. Like, his body gave out on him, but he's free now. And he looks after our family, and he looked after his wife until she passed. And I talk to people about this all the time. Oftentimes it's not hurting them when they pass. It hurts us because we don't understand that they're not that far away. They're just on a different plane.
Oh, I love that you said that. I absolutely, because that's what I try, with the work that I do and everything like that. I think the worst thing for me is seeing people in mourning and in grief.
Yeah.
And going through the 7 stages of grief, which,
yeah,
I've realized for myself that I will not do a mediumship reading until you're at least into that 4th or 5th stage, because it's a natural process and you need to go through it. And that's exactly what I say. And that's what I try to say to everybody is that we're the ones that hurt. When someone that we love dies, we have to remember that they go home and they are free of disease. They are free of all the human emotions and all of that. You know what I mean? And we're the ones that are left to hurt and to grieve and go through this process. And, there's a lot of skeptics out there. And I feel for me with my journey in knowing that they're good, you know what I mean? It makes the process, grief is hard and losing people we love is hard, but just having that knowing that they are with us makes it easier.
Absolutely. And I'll say there are 2 sides of this real quick. One, because I got a lot of emails from people talking. They're like, I miss so-and-so. I miss so-and-so. I want to talk to them. And part of what I send back to most people has to do with the grieving process. I actually send a lot of things like, have you put up a picture of them? Can you put up a picture of them? Can you light a candle for them? And it's not, just about the act of, lighting a candle. It's very much, you are taking that time out of your day to say, I'm going to take a second to remember you. Yeah. I'm going to take a second to thank you. And I always tell people, I'm like, thank them for what they did. And the other side of this is too, sometimes a soul can get pulled back. And that's the other side of when somebody moves on. Like, for example, we can have, I call them thought form spirits or thought form energies, which are just energies. They typically are not intelligent. We can have positive ones who, it's kind of like, the best way to describe it is if you ever have walked into a location and you just feel at peace. There's nothing. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to focus on it. You don't have to think about where you are. You just feel right, Yeah. That's like a form of a larger positive thought form spirit. A negative one would be, and I feel like you've experienced this before in your work, when you walk into a home and it's like, oh no. Yeah. Like, and you don't have to know what happened there, but all you want to do, I bet, is cleanse it out,
Right.
Like,
yeah.
break it up.
Yeah.
Cleanse
Where's
it
the smudge? Let's
exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes when people pass, they can't always, escape that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes an energy can kind of hold them back. And I think what's important for us, even as we're going through the grieving period, if you know that they were being held back by something, like, for example, if somebody was incredibly depressed or their life ended sooner than what we would have wanted, you know, what we can do from here is we still put up that picture, or we have that object maybe that they gave us that we have a good memory attached to it, light that candle or whatever. You know, some people are like, oh, I like to sit down and have tea with this person. Make that tea, make some tea for them, just like they're there, set it out for them, and have that moment of appreciation, and have that moment to say, you deserve to be released. You deserve
Right.
to find what peace you need to find.
Right.
And to also say, if you need assistance with that, we can keep sitting down like this, but I want you to know that you deserve that peace. You deserve it. You know, everybody
Right.
does.
I think a big thing too is when us as souls pass on, a lot of souls are very concerned for the people they're leaving behind.
Oh yeah.
And we need to, you know, when that happens, because I've seen it time and time and time again, where they just, their presence is so strong within the energy of the reading and stuff like that, where I realize that it's like they're making sure that you're okay, and you need to tell them when you're ready. I'm not pushing you, you know what I mean?
Right. It's
a process,
they're there for you.
But I'm letting you know that it's very hard for them to let go. And it's kind of like holding, you know, and I try to explain it where it's like they're holding on, right? And they're always with us. They can always, like, all you have to do is ask.
Yes.
And they'll come and they're here and they're listening.
Yes.
And you'll feel things and everything like that. But it takes a lot of energy for them to lower their vibration enough to have their presence near us.
Yeah.
And we have to remember that, you know?
Yeah.
So when you are ready and willing to let go, you have to let them go.
Yeah.
Because they're always with you, you know?
Right. And yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine. It's fine. No, like we're both passionate about it. So it's
yes.
Like, yeah. But yeah, I definitely feel. So what's the difference between a ghost and a spirit for you?
So I look at things different levels. Okay. So, and I actually just did a video on this too on YouTube where I kind of compared them, but I'll do a little snippet instead of giving you the 25-minute version that I put in there. But if I were to kind of put them on levels, I would say you have your intelligent, and then you have your, like, the people who have lived and died, and then you have your energies. So I'll leave energies out because we kind of talked about that recently on thought form spirits and that sort of thing. But going to those who have lived and died, you have, I'd say the lowest level would be an unintelligent form, which would be a residual kind of spirit. So those are the kind where you can't really talk to it because it's not there with you. It's in its time. And you'll actually find these, it doesn't matter if the home has been destroyed or whatever. There's a library in town where this 3-story mansion used to be. And even though the mansion is long gone, there's a residual energy of someone walking up the stairs and walking up and down their room that happens about the 3rd level of where that house used to be.
Wow.
So yeah. And you get this too. I've heard of cases in Europe where people will see Roman soldiers, but when they walk, it looks like they're walking like their knees are cut off or something, because the roads were lower, or maybe they were higher, you know, depending on where you're at.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know, see, they're not on our plane.
Right.
So it's not like you can really talk to them. There's no releasing of them. They're just sort of there. You can, you know, try to go to a place and say, I hope that you're at peace, you know, and send a good well-wishing there, but it's more like a scar.
Yeah.
And remember, a scar doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Sometimes we scar after surgery, but you know, the
Right.
surgery works. So that's a residual. And then you've got your more intelligent spirit. So I'd say the next level up would be an intelligent spirit that isn't aware that it has passed. So the best example I can give, if you've ever seen the movie The Others with Nicole Kidman.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not going to ruin the ending, but you know what I'm talking about there.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when you can oftentimes get a really angry ghost, because say you're at your house and you hear the door open and shut, or you say the door opens and then you go to shut it and then it opens again and then you shut it.
Yeah.
And it's just this ongoing thing, because in their world, they're seeing a door open.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, no, I opened this. So you get a lot of that energy. And really the only way to break that up is to, if you're not comfortable doing it, you know, getting a medium, like I'd say you to the viewers out there, whoever, you know, get somebody, not you, because I figure you'd be fine with this. But, you know, get a medium and try and talk with them about it. Maybe even it's an awkward conversation to say, hi there, we're having this conversation and only us are alive, you know? But then from there, you can also say, hey, we're not saying you have to go. You just have to be aware that we're sharing the space. So, and then moving into the sharing of the space, the next level up would be the intelligent spirits who know that they're dead or have a pretty good understanding and are just choosing not to move on. And that's not always a bad thing. Like the woman at my old home, she just loves the house. I know a lot of ghosts in Wilmington. They love it here. They just don't want to go yet. And, you know, I'm like, fine, hang out. If we can be in the same space and not bother each other, fine. There's no problem in that. People get so afraid. They're like, oh, I can never live in a haunted house. And I'm like, well, depends on who's haunting.
Right.
You know, like I know.
That's so funny. I always say, like, the dead can do far less to you than the living can. You know what I mean? Like sometimes, absolutely. Absolutely. So then you're saying that there's the intelligent that they know they have passed, but they decide to stay.
Yes. And then from there, the higher level ghosts, I would say you have ancestors. And in my experience, most of the ancestors that I have hanging around me are people that I knew in life and have so passed on, and they're hanging out because my family's still alive. We remember them. It's kind of like the movie Coco, if you've seen it, the Pixar movie. I love that film. I think it's such a great kind of film to illustrate to kids, who are the ancestors? Are they around? Can they come back? What's their purpose? It shows such a familial tie. And I love that culture. I love that belief. And I love how easily illustrated it is for anybody to see in that movie.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of ancestors where, you know, we can call and then we can visit them. Sometimes they're around, whether we want them to be or not. They're like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. Just throwing that out there. Maybe you shouldn't do that.
Right. Yeah. Or they're the ones putting roadblocks, you know, up so you don't do stupid stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there are a number of times where I'll be doing something and like say I'll be cooking, and my grandmother, I love her, Southern lady, very sweet, you know, very much a helper, very much a childcare person. She, being a Southern woman in the household, she always cooked with meat. Everything had meat in it. I have been vegetarian for about 10 years now.
Good for you. Yeah.
That broke her heart a bit, because she'd always want to try to feed me, and I'd be like, I can't eat the green beans because you put ham in them, and she'd be like, what? I don't understand, just don't eat the ham. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But even now, even though she knew that in life and she knows that she's passed on, but I still, when I'm cooking, sometimes I'll be cooking greens or something like that, and I'll be reaching for the salt, and I just get this feeling in the back of my mind of, where's the ham? Just add some ham. And I'm like, Grandma, no. I can't do that.
That's funny. Oh my God, that's hysterical. That's so funny.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people get feelings like that, and it could
Right.
be a memory, but who's to say that that memory is not something else?
Right. Absolutely. Because spirit is so intelligent, and even I think me and you can agree, we know very little about the spirit world. You know what I mean?
And if we did, we probably wouldn't be able to handle it.
Exactly.
You know?
We know very little. We can
It's
only
not
tell
for
you.
us.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I try to say is like, spirit's going to use things just like your thoughts, because how simple is that, to remind you that they're there.
Yes.
And they're always around. Like they're a
Yes.
perfect example. It was like, I had this cat, Binks, and he was such a good cat, and he passed away about 2 years ago. And for some reason, I'm driving, right? I'm driving around my town, and I have the Hocus Pocus song with Bette Midler on my phone.
Oh yeah.
For some reason, out of nowhere, it starts playing. Right? I Put a Spell on You.
Yeah.
He's named after Binks, Zachary Binks. So
yeah.
as soon as I figured it, as soon as I figured out the song, I was like, oh, Binks.
I love that.
Right? Like silly things like that. Simple things like that. Cardinals.
Simple.
Yeah, super simple. Like I said, guys, it's really hard for them to lower their vibrations enough. So they're going to do pennies and cardinals and thoughts.
Yes.
And dreams. That's how they communicate with us.
Yes.
Learn to understand the language of spirit, and you will know that your loved ones are always around.
Absolutely. And I say that to people all the time as well. I tell people all the time, I'm like, you might get all of these high-tech ghost reader stuff. You might get the Ouija boards. Don't get the Ouija boards. Do not get a Ouija board. And I feel like you probably run into this too. A lot of the work that I do when it comes to cleansings are people who have reached out because they want spirits to reach out to them on their level instead of being open to
their language. Right.
Exactly. So they go to all these things. I tell people too, I'm like, oftentimes when you're using that technology and you're just reaching out into the ether, a lot of lower level kind of stuff might reach back, and they might be energies. They may not even be what has been alive. The best thing that you can do if you're trying to reach out to somebody that you love is to say, can you give me a sign where I know that it's you? Instead of just saying, oh, somebody connect with me. It's like, no. Everybody has an inside joke, an inside understanding. Like with pennies, the dates on them, give me a sign. And the best thing that you can do is obviously just be open to it. Take that time, open your eyes a bit more to be able to see that penny that's on the ground, or why is there a flower sitting on your shoe before you go outside in the morning? Little things like that. That's exactly how they communicate.
Right. Before you go and get a ghost, I guess they're called ghost boxes or something.
Ghost boxes are one kind.
Yeah. But then there's the Carillion cameras and stuff like that. And that's fascinating. And
it's
totally,
cool. Yeah.
It is cool. I would love to check it out. But at the end of the day, I don't need that to know that spirit is always around and they're always willing to help us.
Yes.
Yes. So what are some safety and protective precautions that you find when doing this kind of stuff? Like, what do you do? Say, hypothetically, someone calls, says, hey, I think my house is haunted. And then you go and you find out, okay, yeah, no, there's some stuff here. What are things that you do?
Well, I'll back that up real quick, because one of the cool things about kind of blowing up on TikTok is I get all of these messages. I think my house is haunted. And I take the very scientific and logical approach of, okay, well, why do you think it's haunted? Have you tried to prove that it's not haunted? And I'm a very open-minded person. How could I be like this if I weren't open-minded?
It's the Aquarius in you.
It's the Aquarius, absolutely. Though I'm very scientific. I want to know the logistics. I want to be able to look at a situation and say, hey, when the wind picks up, that creaking noise, it's the wind, like
Right.
there's, the more I can learn about science, the more I can learn about technology, the more I can learn about anything logistical,
Right.
I'm going to go with that.
Right. From
there, if, we kind of rule out that, or I go to their house and I start ruling out a few things, there is a bit of a give and take too when going to a house, because sometimes you have an energy that wants to reach out and maybe say, hey, can you tell these people to stop, having loud parties at 3 a.m. I hate that,
Right.
Sometimes even a ghost is like, tell them to stop. But for protective measures, my spiritual practice, I would say, is to obtain the best balance that I can. I don't want to be too excited. I don't want to be too happy, but, and on that, I don't want to be too sad. I don't want to be depressed. I have dealt with depression and anxiety before in my life a number of times, sometimes from like things that I can't handle, and sometimes from my own chemical stuff going on in my brain. If I am suffering from any kind of mental health, I will not go. And that's hard to say because, people, they come to you for help. It's just like a doctor, right? But if you go to a doctor for help and they're sick and they give you part of that sickness and they make it worse, that's not what you want.
Right.
And, it's necessary because, and I feel like you relate to this too, we want to help people. We want to do what we can.
Right.
But we've got to look at ourselves first before
especially when we're doing spiritual work.
Yes.
Especially.
Yes.
I've had to cancel readings because first off, I want to help you as best as I can. And if my mental health isn't doing well that day, if I have stuff in my muggle life that's affecting my emotional and mental well-being, I'm not going to perform that well.
Right.
And that's, and I think that's a very admirable thing. You know what I mean? Especially when we're doing this work, and you're absolutely right. You cannot go into something, say, a paranormal investigation or something along those lines, where your energy and your focus has to be on this investigation and what's going on and connecting to the spirit, if you're going through a horrible transition in your life or if you're dealing with stuff like that. So that's very true. That's so good because a lot of people don't do that.
No, most people don't.
Right.
And that's a sad thing. I'm a part of a very open-minded spiritualist community down here in Wilmington. We've got this whole nook of people who believe in all these different things. And I love it because I'll sit down and I'm like, yeah, tell me about what you believe. Like, let's have a conversation.
Right.
I'm very open-minded. So I'm like, yeah, you believe in Norse gods? Cool. Tell me about it. Oh, you believe in Egyptian gods? Cool. What's going on? What, but and there are with that too, there are a lot of spiritually sensitive people who can give, card readings, oracle, tarot, you name it. They can do all of these readings and such. But if they don't take the protective measures, if they don't check in with themselves first, how are you going to see beyond what you're going through?
Right.
And on that, so kind of getting back on topic a little bit. So before I go out to a place like this, I try to achieve that balance. So I will meditate. I'll check in with my own life. I'll make sure that things are good at my house. My house is on lockdown for like spiritual stuff. I'm like, I want to be able to sleep at night. Nothing bad's getting in. I'm going to haunted places all the time, for being a ghost guide. I've got to be aware when something's following me back. I've got to be aware before I cross the threshold. There are a number of times where I've called up Jay and I'm like, Jay, bring the sage bundle. We're just going to do a cleansing on the street because I keep telling this thing to go and I just need a little bit more of an oomph,
Right.
So, and on that too, making sure nothing's hanging outside the house before I go, so it doesn't decide to pop on and go for a car ride, stuff like that. That's the thing. This is not a short answer because it shouldn't be. When people are just like, I'm going to go out to the graveyard and bring my spirit box and have a conversation. I'm like, maybe not.
Right. Let's be intelligent, guys.
Let's be smart about it. Yeah.
Right.
So achieving balance, making sure that my life physically and spiritually is protected.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I can start making the move out. I also want to check in with my spirit guides and be like, hey, is this a good idea? Can I help them? If I cannot help them, then I'm just going to tell them I'll refer them to somebody. And then once getting there, I wear a number of protective charms, and it's not, I tell people, I'm like, the charm isn't the magic. It's you that puts the magic into the charm, and the charm works like a battery.
It's an intention. It's an
intention. Yeah. So I have a spell bottle made from Old Southern Conjure, which is meant to, I treat it as a light in the darkness, so to speak. I've got a black quartz sealed in copper to repel negative energies. And then I've got a shimmering obsidian that's sealed with copper with like deer horn on it, because I really relate with deer. And I wear all of that if I'm going out for something, because that keeps me centered and it reminds me where I'm at, and all of that's kind of working with me and for me. From there, I get out there. Yeah. See, that's the thing. There's no short answer. I'm curious, like, how much you're going to have to cut for this podcast.
Oh, I'm not cutting anything. I'm not cutting anything, girl. I am like, I like sharing information. You know what I mean? And so, no, nothing's getting cut, because I also loved, I had to say something. I love that you said that your house is a no play zone, because mine is as well. As far as like spirit, like, I will do my mediumship readings at my house, obviously, because most of mine are done remotely, but you're not allowed to hang out afterwards. I have 2 young children who are highly sensitive.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I don't have spirits come hang out. I don't. No. My house is divinely protected, and I set crazy boundaries for my work. And that is a necessity.
And I'll say too, I learned this lesson the hard way. I learned a lot of things the hard way. I have to. Yeah. I try and tell people my stories so that I'm like, hey, I know it's fun sometimes when you have all of these abilities, but you gotta check yourself. And that's why, like, with my house, it was strange moving into a house that didn't already have a spirit in it. Because pretty much everything down here is haunted. I love it that way. I mean, you always have a roommate.
Right.
But moving into this home, it was the wildest thing. Like, the first night we slept here, it was so still and it was so quiet. There were no creaks in the floor, no doors opened on their own, no faucets, no lights, no curtains, nothing happened. And that was the first night when I was like, whoa, I forgot what it was like to live in a house that wasn't haunted. Here's the thing though, the difference being, in my last house, we set up all those protective measures as well. However, we didn't feel the need to push the ghosts that were already there out.
Right.
We came to an understanding with them, and we said, hey, this is who we are. This is what we do. If you have a problem with it, we can try and compromise.
Right.
However, there are a number of things we're not going to compromise on. And then we also said, this is what we believe in. These are our practices. We're going to be protecting the space. And those spirits that were there, even though they didn't share the same
beliefs,
religion. Yeah, they didn't share the same beliefs. They didn't share the same religious backgrounds. However, they, being in the spiritual realm, could recognize what was being done.
That's good.
And that's why I tell people, because I get a lot of questions. They're like, what's your religion? What do you believe in? And I say, it's not about what I believe in. It's what you need to do in order to find that balance, in order to find that peace. Whatever you call it, whatever definition you give it,
right?
So long as it keeps you morally just and safe and, peaceful, balanced, whatever you want to call it, that's what matters. And that's what works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's something. Religion has been a big topic in my, I don't know, I guess my own personal growth this year. And I do want to say it's so funny, like you brought up the Day of the Dead, because I was watching, did you see that Netflix documentary with Morgan Freeman? What is God or something like that?
It is on my list right now. I
Watch
want to
it.
watch it.
The
Okay.
first episode, and I watched it last night, and it's fascinating because he goes to Egypt and he goes to Mexico and he goes to Jesus's where, you know, Jesus was hung at the cross, and just how fascinating it is that everyone believes in something different when it comes to the afterlife.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. It really, truly is fascinating. And I'm more of like, I love learning about how others believe.
Yes.
And I take
same.
a little about from everything. You know
Yes.
what I mean? It's a really good documentary. Oh my God, you guys have to watch it.
I can't
only
wait.
the first episode. Only the first episode. And it was like, wow, like, geez. And I think that helps you when we learn about what others believe and stuff like that. I think it gives us as, you know, light workers and spiritual teachers or whatever you want to call us, a better understanding.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And it allows us to not point fingers at people.
Right.
You know, and I think too, it's kind of like what I said at the beginning. I was part of a religion that didn't believe in any afterlife outside of heaven and hell.
Right.
And how that really scarred me at a young age, because I was like, I must be crazy. And that kind of paranoia just made it worse.
Right.
So it's better, I think, to just kind of be open-minded and just to say, hey, we can talk about it, you know, instead of just being like, no, what you're seeing is fake, you know?
Right. Yeah. I just feel like when we conform to beliefs and stuff like that, we're limiting our potential. We're limiting ourselves.
Yeah.
This world is this universe, I should say, is a much bigger place than we give it credit for. And absolutely, just be open-minded, guys. You know what I mean? You don't have to believe in everything, but be open-minded about a different concept or a belief system, because there might be wisdom within it for you.
Yes.
You know?
And that's when I say too, like, kind of noting on what's out there. When people ask, what do I believe in? I'll tell them something like this. I say, hey, you know how we have this amazing technology, how we can look out into space and we can see so much. And every day we're learning something new. Every day, like there's all these worlds out there. There's all these stars, galaxies, you name it. And they don't even know how far it might actually go. They have all these theories, these beautiful theories, and they back them up with even more science, but they keep changing. And I say, I believe in science. I believe in what we can see. I believe in those theories. I believe in the new theories that counteract the old ones. And then I say, I believe in what's beyond what we can see right now.
Yes. That's the Aquarius in you, because I believe the same thing. That's the Aquarius in you. You're our humanitarian belief systems. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I believe that all connects us, because at some point it's like, hey, the universe did happen and we're still trying to figure out how. So I believe in how it happened.
Right.
I don't have an answer for that.
Right. Exactly.
Like, who does?
Right. So if there's someone listening right now who may be, you know, thinking that they're dealing with a ghost or a haunting or anything along those lines, what are 3 pieces of advice you would give them right now?
Ooh, 3 pieces of advice. Okay. Calm down. Calm down. Breathe.
That's 2.
Oh, no. I mean, that's 2, but like,
right.
Like, calm down, because people freak out. They're like, I think it's a ghost. I saw, like, somebody the other day was like, I saw a child in my kitchen. Is it a demon? And I was like, no, I mean, did it like scream at you? Did you wake up bleeding? I mean,
Right.
any of this? And they're like, no, it just looked at me and then disappeared. And I'm like, okay, calm down.
Right. So that's a really great piece of advice. It really is. Oh my gosh.
Well, that's the thing with paranormal investigators too. They're
Right.
always so hyped up, and that
Oh, the Ghost Adventures guys. I love Ghost Hunters. I liked remember Ghost Hunters? I think they're still on Taps.
Yeah, yeah. And
They
that's the thing.
go in to disprove a haunting, and they're very
Excellent.
logical about it and stuff.
Good.
But I watched Ghost Adventures and I was like, oh my God, these guys
Stop.
are drama queens. Stop.
And also, I'll say this too. If you know Sam and Colby,
Mm,
they're YouTube people. They're two guys.
no.
I didn't know about them until people on TikTok were like, you got to check them out. They get a lot of reactions from lower form spirits because they roll up in a place and then just start screaming. It's very Ghost Adventures vibe. And I hate that. I hate that for the spirits because it's so rude.
Right.
It's so rude. And they'll actually get responses from ghosts, and then they'll freak out about it and they don't use it. And it makes me so angry because I'm like, do you recognize the energy that it took for that entity to come to you in a way that you wanted them to?
Right.
And then instead of trying to actually help them, like what you're saying, they're lying to these spirits. And then they start screaming and then they leave. And then they're like, whoa, that's too much. That's too much. And I'm like, no, it's not. They did exactly what you wanted them to do.
Right.
Don't say that.
Right. It's soul to soul communication. And that's what I try to say, especially with mediumship. It's soul discarnated. I'm a soul and my sitter's a soul. You're still talking to a soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
Respect it.
Exactly. Be respectful. Don't roll up in their home and expect somebody to talk to you.
Right.
So that's another reason why I say calm down, because people, even if you're too excited, even if you're in the right mindset,
right,
if your energy is off the walls, you might get that ghost to respond to you, but you might get something else to respond to you. And by the way, I can't say this enough. Ghosts lie. They can lie. People are like, oh, I had something in a mirror tell me it was a demon. And I'm like, yeah, I bet they did that to ruffle you up so that you could give them more energy.
Right.
Not everything's a demon, everybody.
Right.
Most, it's not even mostly. So yeah, that's why calm down. I'll get back to the topic.
Yeah.
So calm down. The second one, ask yourself, does it bother your day to day? Is it going to bother you? Like, for example, if you have the residual energy of somebody who maybe died in that apartment, or whatever, like you have a lot of these terrible things that have happened where, people will have tragic deaths.
Yeah.
And say it was like in a bathtub or something, for whatever reason, and you can't take a bath in that space because it's so heavy. Or maybe you even see that every now and then, or maybe the faucets keep turning on or things get clogged. That's an energy that you can't live with. That's something you got to break up. That's something you got to release. That disrupts your day to day. If it's a ghost that walks down your hall every morning, that's not disrupting your day to day. Now, if it takes down all of the pictures of your family on its way, that disrupts your day to day.
Right.
If it's, say, unlocking your doors to your house and just allowing anybody to come in, that's disrupting your day to day. Most ghosts will not disrupt your day to day. But that's a question each person needs to ask themselves. And it's okay if it's something small too. Like, say there's a ghost that's just really sad and the energy is so palpable that it makes you sad. That disrupts your day to day.
Yeah.
It's okay to, try and work that. It's like needing the energy out, really just, trying to break it up and move it out. So yeah, calm down. Does it disrupt your day to day? And the third one, trust your gut. you know, we know this as spiritually sensitive people. Everybody has a touch of that energy within them. Everybody has communication with the other side, whatever that may be. Everybody has something in their camp, whether it be a spirit guide or an ancestor, or even just an energy or a higher level spirit or something like that, whatever you want to call it. And that can affect us sometimes, honestly, sometimes literally in our gut. Like, we'll get this feeling, you know.
Yeah.
I think everybody's had it at some point in their life where they just know something.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that goes back to the first one too. You've got to calm down so that you know, is this a gut reaction or is this like a heart reaction?
Is,
Like,
is this fear? Is this your ego taking a hold, or is this actually, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, calm down, recognize if it affects your day-to-day life, and trust your gut.
That's like the best that you can give. Like, seriously. Like, perfect. Spot on. Guys, go follow Rebekah on TikTok and on YouTube. She really is such a wealth of information. Rebekah, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah, it was. I loved it. Thank you.